these two friends of mine here, to me, is really a real gift. I saw them in Atedex and after your meeting with the Pope Francis, and then start from that thumb up, a relationship that I thanks God that exists. I thanks also you. Yeah. And I booked their agenda, I think 8 months ago, I don't and so you are here. I don't want to introduce themselves to you. We have to listen to their story. And we are here just to listen, and I give you the floor, the mic, and the all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Start with the hug. Start with the hug.
Sure. Now, I can't promise you you'll like everything we have to say, but that's the beginning, right? We have to listen to each other. But before any of that, since it's an Israeli and a Palestinian, the assumption often things might go off the rails. So we'll start with something that shocks people when they see it. And it shocks people a lot. We just came from Ben Gurion together. And we got super extra security checks because they couldn't understand how can a Palestinian and Israeli be friends. So the two of us spent 2.5 hours in security checks because they're like, but we don't understand why you friends. So we're gonna start with a hug, and this is to show. And with the answer we gave to the security officers at Ben Gurion, you think with the many checks you are bringing security, the work we are doing brings peace and security better than any walls and any security checks you can have.
Yeah. So I want to tell you how I see reality nowadays. Okay, September 2025. The reality is broken. Our life is broken. The division, the polarization, the militarism is rising, and the reality we lived, we grew up within, we thought will stay forever, is broken. Definitely where we are coming from. And when the reality is broken, it's the time for the prophets. And prophet got two roles, as I see it. The role number one is to tell the leaders and the common people that the reality is broken. And if they will continue to hold the broken reality, is going to smash on us all and bring a great destruction. And someone need to be brave enough to tell it. And we, with your support and others, we are brave enough to tell that the reality is broken. And the second role of the prophet is to show us the way. What we should do now, what we should be different, which paths we should stop going in and which paths we should start take from now on. And all prophets, always their prophecy is about justice, is about peace, it's about reconciliation. In all Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and many others. So we should always, when we are in doubt about the future, about our action, about is this winter going to end? How can will we save ourselves and others? We can go back to the prophets. The prophecy is always fitting to the broken reality we are living within. And for me, reality broke on October 7th. On October 7th, I woke up in my home in Binyamina, which is halfway between Tel Aviv to Haifa, on the Israeli, not far from the Mediterranean. And I received a WhatsApp message from my father. My parents lived in the nearest Israeli community to the border in Gaza, nearly on the border. And he sent a message that there is a war, that they are shooting missiles, sirens, so they locked the house and they are in the safe room. It was early morning, so he didn't call, not me or my 3 sisters or my young brother. He just sent us a message. And crazy as it might sound, it happens every few months that there is a violence and a cycle of bloodshed. So I didn't took it too seriously. I continue with my morning routine, which is making machineta, coffee to my wife. And while the machineta was boiling, I could see on social media at 7:30 in the morning that the wall is being fallen and Hamas intrude Israeli communities. So this I never remember before. So I called my father and he told me basically the same what he wrote on the message, that there is a war. And they hear shooting and bombs and it's very scary. So I told him, I love you, Dad. Say, Mom, I love you. Stay in the safe room and we'll talk soon. So I keep watching on social media how devastating this situation is. So 10 minutes after, I called my father again at 7:40, and this time there was no answer. So I tried to call my mother, there was no answer. I called and wake up my sisters, I wake up my brother who's based in London. We tried to reach my parents, their neighbors, no one answered the phone. So we decided to group together at my sister's house. And only in the afternoon, we were able to reach one of the community members, and he told us that my parents' house is burned to ashes and that there are 2 bodies inside. It's like falling into the abyss, okay? It's like the nightmare, and your worst nightmare that you couldn't even imagine happened. And we decided to start at the Shiva. It's the Jewish way of mourning on Sunday morning. And hundreds of people came to pay their condolences and cry with us. And on the second day of the Shiva, my young brother asked us, the 5 siblings of Bila and Yaakov, he asked us to reject revenge. That we need to send a universal message that we don't want to revenge the death of our parents. And he explained us that by revenging, we're not going to bring them back to life. They are dead. And by revenge, we'll only escalate the cycle of bloodshed, hate, and fear that didn't start 2 days before. It started about a century ago, and it should be within our mission to break this cycle and to choose and pave a different path. And that night, I had a vision. I was crying in bed, my entire body was in pain. And through my tears, I could see each one of you. I could see you, and I could see you. I could see the entire humanity. And we were all crying. And our tears went down our face, and then to our bodies. And our bodies were burned from the war. They were crushed, they were bleeding. It was a horrible, horrible vision to see. And then we kept crying and crying, and our tears went down our bodies and started to heal us. Our tears cured us. We became whole again and healthy. And we kept crying and crying. The entire humanity kept crying. And then our tears went down to the ground. But we could not see grass, we could not see flowers, we could not see sand. The entire ground was soaked with blood. Again, it was a devastating vision. And we kept crying and crying, and our tears started washing the blood away, purifying the land. And then the land became so beautiful and shining. It was amazing. The land is amazing. And then I could see a path. I could see the path to peace and reconciliation. And I make a decision that if I want to save myself, if I want to heal myself from drowning, and for 3 days, that's not a metaphor. I was literally drowning in an ocean of sorrow and pain. My entire body was broken into thousands of pieces. And I realized that if I want to heal myself, I must choose this path. And in the morning, I watch my WhatsApp and Facebook messages, and I received a message from Aziz. And Aziz, in his message, sent his condolences. And that he's staying with me and with my family. And from that moment on, I knew that I'm not alone in this path of peace and reconciliation. Thank you.
So this reality is broken for the 2 of us, and this reality is broken for both of our peoples. I grew up in East Jerusalem in a Palestinian family, and I grew up with no rights. I didn't have a citizenship growing up, didn't have a passport growing up. And it's very hard to almost explain it because it's not a one-time event. It's every aspect of your life is controlled by the Israeli military. When I go to school, there are soldiers in the way. I got shot at tear gas first time when I was, I think, 7 or 8 years old. Shot at also live ammunition when I was that old. And I went home and I made a very good case for my mom why schools are not worth dying for. I just went home and said, I know I'm 7 or 8 and you want me to be a doctor, which failed. But I don't think I want to go to school. You don't want me to die. And she had to figure out a way to make me go back to school. Anybody can guess how?
Chores in the house.
What is it?
Chores around the house.
Chores around the house. I did that anyway, but no. She gave me something to take with me to school. Food, you're getting close. No, it's something to help with tear gas.
Meals.
Have any of you been at a protest? You're close, there's something you can take.
Milk.
Not milk? Maybe that's Turkish way. No? An onion, here we go. Here we go, thank you. An onion, if you cut an onion apparently and you put it close to your nose, it helps you not suffocate. I'm helping you for your next protest. So you didn't know this, but this is also a crash course on how to go into a riot at some point. But I had, for the next few years, going to school meant I every day had to make sure my onion is fresh or I wouldn't go to school. And that's what it means growing up in that broken reality that Maoz is talking about. And there are hundreds of stories I can tell you, but I don't think Benedetto would want us to stay here for that. My brother was killed when I was 10 years old. He was taken from home as on suspicion of throwing rocks. He was beaten up in prison because he wouldn't confess to the charges, and he ended up dying soon after he was released when he was 19 years old. I was 10 years old. And as anybody who's 10 years old, somebody killed your brother, how do you respond?
Violence.
Yeah, you respond, you're angry, revenge. It almost felt like if somebody walks to you, if I just walk to you here and I go, bam, and I punch you right in the face, what would the first thing that comes to your mind? What would you do? You'll punch back, thank you. I love honest people. There are sometimes people who I would do nothing, and I know they're lying. Most people will punch back, especially when you are 10 years old. If somebody punches you in the face, you punch back. How many people, if they punch in the face, the first thing they do is, let me take a few steps backward and think about this logically. It's not what 10-year-olds do. And so it took me 8 years to get to the point where Maoz is. Maoz took him 2 days. It took me 8 years. I'm a slow learner. Also, I was 10 years old, so I needed time to mature. And it was after I went to study Hebrew in an ulpan, which is where Jewish immigrants go to study Hebrew. I refused to study Hebrew growing up, realized if you don't study Hebrew, you live in Jerusalem, you can't get a job, you can't go to college, you can't work, you cannot do really anything without Hebrew. So I went to Ulpan, which is designed for Jewish immigrants who go to Israel. And that was my first interaction with any Jewish person, any Israeli person, ever. That is not a settler or a soldier. That is a normal, let's say, interaction, because obviously you come across people, but it's not a normal interaction. And it's through that interaction that I started realizing, like Maoz said, that we're not divided into Israelis against Palestinians. We are divided into those who believe in equality, those who believe in justice, those who believe in dignity, and those who don't yet. And there are a lot of those who don't. I went today, Michal and I decided to go through all the platforms of political parties in Israeli parliament and Palestinian groups in parliament as well. It's depressing. One of them, Otzma Yehudit, which is currently is a minister of police in Israel, their platform says Arabs should not have equal rights, should not have political or civil rights in the country. Not only Palestinians in the West Bank, also citizens of Israel. This is a platform of the police minister. Somebody earlier mentioned Hamas platform, says the similar stuff, says Israel shouldn't be here, and Israelis, the whole Zionist thing, it goes on rambling similar stuff. This is the reality that is broken. And so much of what's happening today is saying, well, it's Israelis versus Palestinians. We don't buy into that. We believe it's Israelis and Palestinians who can stand together against that broken system. And it doesn't matter who does the broken system, we stand against that broken system and we work to change it. Doesn't matter, on October 7th when I didn't know Maoz almost at all. I met him once before October 7th, 10 years earlier. I have a good memory and I'm like, he's a cool guy. And when a friend told me that his parents were killed, I didn't think he's Israeli, he's Jewish, I can't reach out to him. The lack of empathy that exists today is our downfall. The lack of empathy that exists today around the world, where people have to check, is this children Jewish or Palestinian, before I decide if I need to feel bad or I can justify if it's happening. Is this in Gaza or in Israel before I decide how I'm going to respond? Oh, but we don't buy into any of these binaries. We have friends, I have many friends on October 7th who were affected by it. Vivian Silver, a friend who's been a mentor for me as a peace activist. She's a very well-known peace activist, was killed on that day. My staff, I work in tourism. One of my tour guides, his cousin was killed. One of my staff, her best friend was taken as a hostage. You don't divide. And then since then, Maoz and I have friends in Gaza who lost their entire families. There's almost not a week passed by that we don't know somebody who's lost literally their entire family. So we don't divide into who do I empathize with. We don't say, oh, this is okay and this is not. So what brought us together is the pain, is the brokenness, but also is a vision for a better future. It's us coming together and saying, this is unacceptable, we'll speak against it, we don't want it to happen, and we will work together to make that change. And we know we cannot do it alone, so we'll come also to you and ask you to be our partners.
I want for a second to connect to where we are now, in Palermo, Sicily. The size of Sicily is nearly the size of Palestine and Israel together. I didn't check how many people live in Sicily, but between the river to the sea, Jordanian River to the Mediterranean Sea, there are 14 million human beings. Half of them are Palestinians and half of them are Israelis. So, and Sicily, and why for us it's very important to be here, because the symbol of Sicily is the Gorgona Medusa, right? I'm not wrong. And Gorgona Medusa, we know her as a monster, right? She's a monster. But in the Greek, in the mythology, she wasn't born a monster. She was born a beautiful, honest, pure Greek girl that went to worship the goddess of Athens in her temple. And she was raped by Poseidon. And her trauma wasn't healed. Her trauma wasn't treated. The contrary, she was cursed. She was cursed by Athens and made her the Gorgona Medusa, that everyone's that will look in her eyes will become into a stone. And this is exactly the myth we want to break. This is a false myth that you can kill a monster by beheading her, by bombing her, or by building a wall. This is not the way to kill a monster. This is the way to let the monster grow and grow and grow. The only way to kill a monster is by looking to her in the eyes. Listen to her pain. Dialogue with her. Go through mutual healing process. And then not only we will humanize the monster, we're going to humanize ourselves. And this is the work each one of us can do. Each one of us can do. And I started this work when I was 30. I was born and raised in Israel, a mile away from the border in Gaza. And by the age of 30, I've already been traveling twice around the world in New Zealand, Australia, Asia, South America. And I learned so much about indigenous people and native communities. their lifestyle, their heritage, their culture, religions and faith. But at the age of 30, I had not even one single Palestinian friend. I didn't know the difference between Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, and Ramadan. I didn't know where Jesus was born. I didn't know where Jesus was buried. And I never heard about the Annunciation. So I realized at the age of 30 that I'm living within walls of ignorance. When there is ignorance, there is fear. When there is fear, there is hate. And when there is hate, we live the life we are all living. And I wanted to open a gate within those walls, and I've decided to use tourism as a tool to break the wall. And when I was 30 years old, I opened a guest house, which was the first guest house ever in the old city of Nazareth. Nazareth is the largest Palestinian city within Israel. 20% of Israeli citizens are Palestinians. 20%, it's about 2 million people, are Palestinians with Israeli ID and passport. But there is total segregation. We are walled, physically and mentally, we are walled between each other. And after working in Nazareth for 20 years, I started preaching that the only way to create a shared life and a shared future is by knowing the other side narrative. We must know the other side pain and suffering and challenges and dreams and aspiration. If we keep walling between us and oppressing and erasing the other side, violence is not going to meet us down the road or behind the corner. The corner of violence is already here. And so this is why the work of humanization and listening and asking the most difficult question, which I hope soon you will ask us, it's crucial to create a shared life, to create a shared vision, and to humanize us as equal. Thank you. Thank you.
What's funny is Maoz and I worked in parallel but didn't know each other, because he went into tourism, I went into tourism. He went into the guest house, and that's how he met Israelis, and I established a company called Mejdi Tours. The idea of it was exactly what Maoz was talking about, learning about each other's narrative. And this is really important because we often, when we talk about leadership, I started doing political stuff when I was 13. And then at 18, I was already disillusioned with politics, and I quit. Started my career very early, and fortunately quit very early. At least Palestinian politics, you don't want to be involved in it. And I decided to go eventually into business. And I started this company with a Jewish friend. In Israel and Palestine, there are not many joint businesses. And that there are so many sectors for peace building that's lacking. That is the reason where we are today, because it doesn't create a pressure and it doesn't create an interest for peace building to exist. So to have a business co-owned with a Jewish guy and then to run tours, we ran these tours where we had an Israeli and a Palestinian tour guides co-leading a tour together, which when we started, everyone told us they're gonna kill each other, or the tour is gonna run away, or they're gonna fight. Maybe it'll be entertaining if they fight. But what ended up happening is the exact opposite. Is the dialogue that Maoz was talking about, and the relationships that were created between the tour guides, dozens of tour guides, and then eventually with the travelers who started to care about the place, not because they took a photo of the Holy Land, of a mosque, of a synagogue, of a church, but because they connected to the people. And then since then started doing it in many, many other regions, because we realized we need to innovate how peace building is happening. It's not only in politics, it's not only in nonprofits. Peace building doesn't only happen in meeting rooms like this, it happens in every aspect of our society. And if we really want to transform our societies, it needs to be in every aspect of it, in every kind of business. It's not a thing you do in the Thursday afternoon for a couple of hours. It's a thing you do every day. And trust me, Maoz knows this. Doesn't mean you're always successful. I get pretty pissed much easier than him. He's a lot more chill guy, and I'll say something dumb and then he'll tell me calm down, and then usually I listen to him. Usually, not always. But this is the journey that we've gone through, and this is why we wanted to share it with you, is think about where can you bring this knowledge into, this kind of practice into. Because people really, Martin Luther King Jr. talked about how men hate each other because they don't know each other, because they don't know each other because they are separated. And he goes on, why they separated? Because they fear each other, and they fear each other, they hate each other. Why? Because they fear each other. Why? Because they are separated. And eventually this line of separation, it's not because we just don't know each other, it's because we think we know each other. This illusion that I know everything about you, but I just met you and I actually talked to you almost nothing. I watched a documentary about you on TV. I read a book about somebody who doesn't know what he's talking about. I like that Benedetto shared from Edward Said, didn't share some Italian author about Palestinians and Israelis. He shared something from somebody from there. So this is important, the illusion that we think we know each other. And just to give you a quick example how that illusion exists, my dad, which story should I share about my dad? The mosque or the Holocaust?
I think the Holocaust is longer.
Okay. So my dad grew up all his life in Jerusalem. He's now 88 years old, knock some wood, and stubborn guy. I started doing my piecework when I was 18. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was running one of the main peace organizations in Israel and Palestine called the Parent Circle, Bereaved Families Forum. I said, you know it. And we had this conference, and I've been inviting my dad and my mom to come. And eventually my dad said, yes, I'll come. There were a few hundred people in the room. He comes, there's a panel. I introduce him as my dad. Big mistake. I can tell you, never bring your parent to anything you do if you don't want to be embarrassed. And then they ask if anybody has a question. And obviously my dad raises his hand, and already I'm thinking, I fucked up. I should not have brought this man here, because I knew he's going to ask something embarrassing to me. And he stood up, and this was his question. So I heard what you all said, but so this Holocaust thing. Now, if somebody ever starts their sentence with "so this Holocaust thing," it's not going to go well. You already know it's going downhill from there. And he goes, this Holocaust thing, did it really happen? And at this point, I'm going, I don't know this man. And then he goes, or did Israel make it up for political reasons? And he goes on, and everyone's like, we're not answering this question. I'm already running out of the door. And what's amazing is at that point, there were one of two choices for people there. Yell at him and tell him, how could you, you're a Holocaust denier, blah, blah, all of that. That's what I expected would happen, to be frank. But instead, a very dear friend, his name is Rami Al-Hanan, an Israeli Jewish guy. His father was in Auschwitz. His daughter was killed by a suicide bomber, Palestinian suicide bomber. So this is a guy who would have more than anybody else almost the right to stand up and yell at my dad. And yet he stood up and he said, I hear you. You never learned about it. I can't expect you to believe in something you never learned about. So I'm going to give you an offer. My father, who was in Auschwitz, will take you to the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, to Yad Vashem, and he will tell you his story. And it's up to you. If you want to believe, you believe. If you don't, you don't. No expectations. And so my dad said, yes, I'll go. But what ended up happening is 70 other Palestinians in that meeting. Every one of them had a family member killed in the conflict. Every one of them said, honestly, we had the same question, but we were afraid to ask because we didn't want to rock the boat. We didn't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And suddenly, they're like, okay, he did it. We want to tag along. We want to come. And they ended up going, 70 Palestinians with 3 Holocaust survivors. It wasn't easy. There were hard questions. There were moments that were really rough. There were a lot of tears. But by the end, it made us much closer as an organization. A couple weeks later, the Israelis in the organization came to us and said, you know, we realized you don't know much about us. We don't know much about you. We want to learn about your perception. What happened in 1948 in the Nakba, the Palestinian catastrophe? Can you take us to one of your villages that was destroyed and tell us what happened? And so we had somebody who was from a village that took the whole group, actually 2 people, took a whole group of 70 Israelis to a Palestinian village. I was there and told, this used to be my home. This used to be where I did this tree we planted. This is how we ended up being pushed out of our homes. It was not an easy conversation. It was very difficult, but it made us much closer. Peace doesn't happen by walking over eggshells. We have to be honest, maybe ask the questions a little better the way that my dad did. But that honesty and being able to ask and listen is essential in being able to do peacemaking.
So I want quickly to share the third most important lessons I learned since October 7th, and then the 5 steps that each one of us can take in order to make a dream into a reality. How can we convince others in our dream, and how we can fulfill it and mobilize others, and also keep believing, keep the faith and the fire within us. So I'll start with the 3 most important lessons. And lesson number 1 is that hope is not something that we can lose, not something someone else will give us or something we'll find on the way. Hope is an action. Hope is an action. It's a series of action. And this is basically what you are doing in this week. And this is what so many Israelis and Palestinians are doing on the ground. Hope is a series of actions, starting by envisioning a better future and acting together to make this vision into reality. And we must be very honest again with ourselves to ask ourselves, is this action effective or not? If it's effective, it's amazing. Think about it. You vision the future, you act, and it's effective. It means we're going to make this vision into reality. And if it's not effective, it's not a reason to give up or to be in despair. It's just a reason to change our actions till we find the one that is effective. And maybe what was effective yesterday is not effective today. What's effective now is not going to be effective tomorrow. So this is how we can create hope together. And hope is also like a muscle. It's something we can train. So if I see now a challenge or a crisis, I already think, okay, how do I want this crisis to be solved? And which action we need to take together in order to bring this solution into reality. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson, and I had so many talks with Palestinians, with Israelis on the ground, in the diaspora, and I realized that we're never going to agree on the past. We're not going to agree on the present. It's totally different narratives. We are wasting so much time in arguing, in debating, trying to convince the other side in our narrative. But while sometimes we win the debate, if it's on media or social media or on stage, we win the debate, but while we won the debate, people are losing their life on the ground. And we want to save life. And the order to save life is to build and agree on a shared future. The future, it's not only when Israelis and Palestinians meet, it's where we all meet, where humanity meets. And what's important is not if it's 2 states, 1 state, confederation, whatever. It's what are the values of this future. How we want to live our life based on which values. And we reach to a set of values that I believe everyone in this room aligned with: equality and dignity, shared acknowledgement and recognition, reconciliation and healing, security and safety. Those are the values of the future. And the most difficult lesson that I learned from Aziz and another Palestinian friend, Hamza Awaude, is the lesson of forgiveness. You want to share or you?
Okay,
okay, I'll go. Is the power of forgiveness. When you decide, you choose to forgive to those who harmed you, you're not doing it for them, you are doing it for yourself. To save yourself from the destiny those who harmed you, who killed your loved one, choose for you. And wanting to revenge put you in a prison cell It's cold, it's dark, and it's closing on you. And the key for freedom is forgiveness. And I learned that from Aziz, I learned that from Hamza, and I choose radical forgiveness. I forgive everyone for the past and from the present. But like Hamza Awad said, I'm not willing to forgive anyone, not to myself and to no one else, if we're not going to build a better future for us all. So those are the three lessons: hope, the future, and forgiveness. And I will quickly share the 5 steps to make a dream into a reality. That's the important part, okay, of our testimonial. Step number 1 is to dream. The power of dream is the strongest power of humanity. Dream is how you change reality. And currently, those who dream in the Holy Land, Palestine and Israel, are the extremists. They share the same dream of total destruction, ethnical cleansing, ethnical supremacy. That's their dream, and this is our nightmare. So now we decided to position ourselves in the field of dream, based on the ancient prophets and many of the recent prophets. The dream of peace. The second is that we need to agree on our shared values. What we're going to base our dream upon. Those are the values of the future. So we have step number 1, dream. Step number 2, we agreed about shared values. And number 3 also, we must build a network, a partnership, a coalition. No one can fulfill big dreams on his own. We always, and this is again, we are following Benedetto teaching. We build a network, okay? We build a network, we build partnership. We need build a coalition. We want to be your partners. We are not here to talk to you from the stage. We're here to be with you. We want your partnership. So we build that's the 3rd step, coalition. The 4th is to have a roadmap. If we won't have a roadmap, we're going to get lost. We're not going to reach our destination. We're not going to reach our dream. And the 5th step is to execute. Because if we won't execute, it will stay a beautiful and amazing and maybe detailed roadmap, but no one would know about it. So dream, values, coalition, roadmap, execution. And think about it as a method to achieve and fulfill your dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. Need a hug.
Thank you.